Well, welcome. We're going to talk about your page ladder. Now, even if you're a rookie person, depending on when you're watching this, you know what the page ladder is. It's a very important item that in my quarter century or more of doing yearbooking, I saw way too many yearbook staffs kind of wing it with the page ladder. Like, well, okay, this kind of goes here. We'll put this here. Where are we going to put this? No, all right. The page ladder is a very important item, which we're going to talk about right here. All right. We're going to start with this. For all the years, decades that I did yearbooking stuff, usually at the beginning of a school year, when I had a chance to, meet a group or a student yearbook staff and so on, and I would say, what are the two most important things with a yearbook? And a lot of times kids will say, well, the cover and color and the pictures and so on. And I would say, okay, those are all important things, obviously. That's not it. I said the two most important things with any yearbook effort, organization and planning. Nail those two, and everything else falls into place. It becomes actually a very enjoyable job. It's those groups that don't do much with organization and planning that almost inevitably hit headaches at some point or more down the road. And your page ladder is a big part of that organization and planning. Now, the page ladder itself is okay, how are we going to organize our book? In other words, what's going in what pages and all that sort of thing. And when we look at it that way, there may be more, but primarily there's only two ways to sort of organize a yearbook, usually called traditional and chronological. Now, today, still, the great majority of yearbooks out there, of all kinds, elementary to college, the great majority of yearbooks out there have a traditional plan. What does that mean? That means you have the traditional sections. You have, if it's a high school, you have the senior section, the underclassmen section, the sports section, the club section, the so-called student life section, and so on. And you kind of clunk, clunk, clunk throughout the book. Now, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. And again, the majority of schools, that's still the way you do it. Okay. So inside the sports section, all right, all the different sports teams that you have, fall sports, winter sports, spring sports, maybe a little bit more than that. Okay. Senior section is obvious, all the seniors. The club section, all the clubs, like one after another, and so on. Nothing wrong with that. In recent times, the other one, the chronological plan, has beginning to gain some steam. More schools pick it up for a number of different reasons. Now, the simple thought with a chronological book is you march through the book as you march through your school year, which is kind of logical, right? So you start maybe with, maybe you start with summer stuff. People do things in the summertime. Then you have fall, winter, spring, and so on. And then you have a people section, all right? Seniors, underclassmen, all that sort of stuff, okay? I like chronological because it is a logical read, all right? Think about other books you read. They go chronologically, don't they? Novels. I mean, all sorts of books go chronological rather than kind of jumping around, which is sort of the traditional idea. All right, we've got sports, then we kind of jump to clubs and so on. Chronological is more, here's how our school year went. Zoom, and you just kind of produce it and you read it that way. Now, how do you design this? Well, there's several different ways. Probably the most popular might be by season. So you have a summer section, fall, winter, and spring section. And so in the winter section, all the things that happen in that winter period are in that section. Fall, spring, same deal. Some folks, I've seen it do it by month. So there's a September section, an October section. Things that happen in that month go in there. Now, once again, you have a separate people section, the headshots and all that stuff. But chronologically, we go through the book. It's pretty rare, but I've actually seen a weekly schedule. Now, I tell you what, that takes some organization and some activity because essentially it means you are busy every week of the school year trying to collect the things that are happening that week, sports games, clubs, some special class activity or something like that. And so you're busy every week of the school year because on that spread or two spreads, depending on how big your yearbook is, all the stuff from the week of September 1st go into that particular spread, and then the 8th, and then the 15th, and so on. It's actually a pretty cool read. it does take a little more organization and effort to try the weekly idea. And one thing to keep in mind here, guys, is again, the yearbook is the story of people. And a lot of times when I see page ladders, I see events, homecoming week, football, winter dance, or something like that. And it's more about coverage of events and groups. Well, keep in mind that, okay, the football team is not going to buy a yearbook, but the members of the football team will buy a yearbook. So always remember as you do your planning, we're telling stories about people. How can we incorporate stories of people into our coverage, if it's by season, if it's by month, and so on, or the traditional idea? All right, always keep people in mind, not just events and things. And that kind of figures into our page ladder planning. All right. So when you're figuring out, okay, pages 22 and 23 are going to be this, and along with that, it's going to be this, and this. All right. You know, person, group, person, and so on as you do your storytelling. That's part of organization and planning. Now, depending on the size of your book, all right, if you're of a smaller book, maybe you only have a one deadline with your yearbook company. Okay. And you kind of turn it all in at once. If you have a larger book with multiple deadlines, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that turns out to be, all right, this is where maybe chronological is a good idea because, again, you're going to probably start at the front of the book and kind of march your way through your coverage. So, again, if it's seasonal, fall, well, we want to get all that fall stuff done by the end of fall. Now, all of a sudden, you have a whole lot of pages done. Here they are. And so making your deadlines could be a little easier if you go with the chronological idea, because again, you kind of march through the school year. Now, again, might depend on what yearbook company you work with. Hopefully, they send you some stuff, and somewhere in the stuff is a big paper ladder. And I know we're high tech now and all that sort of thing, but if you don't already do this, please pull that paper ladder out, put it up on a wall, fill it out as thoroughly as you can fill it out. Why do all that? Because a lot of yearbook companies have an online ladder and everybody uses that. Some people might make an Excel file for the ladder. Okay, that's fine, that works too. But that paper ladder on the wall is like a visual element that every time people walk into the classroom or the yearbook room and so on, they can look over at the paper ladder. Okay, what do we have done? What do we need to do? Where are we right now? I just think the paper ladder is a more effective visual than any online ladder is. And it's old school, but it works and it gets people's attention. You know, when you cross off, okay, we got these pages done and so on, or you color code it or something like that, people see that and it gives them an immediate idea. Okay, we're doing great. Okay, we're a little behind schedule right now, and so on. Because I'm looking at this ladder. Ooh, boy, we got to catch up. Let's go. Use that paper ladder. Again, it's old school, but it's still very visual and very, very effective. One other quick thing, of course, during the school year, things happen, right? All right, something gets canceled, something gets added, something changed, and so on. Change your page ladder shouldn't be a big deal. Now, I can remember during the COVID years, like 2020 and 2021 especially, things were getting canceled kind of left and right, and people were tearing their page ladders apart. It was a real headache. Let's hope we never go down that road again. But if need be, and if you need some help, depending again on who you work with, contact your yearbook company representative and say, hey, we got problems here. Things have happened. We need to change our page ladder and we've submitted these pages and so on. If you've got a good yearbook company representative, they will find a way to get you through that situation. So let them help. All right, so let's do an activity very quickly. Now, it sort of depends on when you're watching this video, but take a look at your page ladder now. Take a look at your plan right now. Where are you? All right, are you traditional book, you chronological book? If you're watching this early in the school year and you're like, hey, that chronological thing sounds interesting, we want to know more. All right, again, contact your yearbook company or your yearbook representative. They should have information about chronological yearbooks that if you want to make that pivot to sort of a new plan, they should be able to help you do that. But at the very least, just take a look at your plan right now. Are you satisfied with it? All right, just like, yep, that's what we want. Or do you have misgivings somewhere, or it's very vague and you need to become more specific with your plan, like Okay, on the volleyball spread, we're covering what exactly? Be particular, make lists, and get that plan down, because then later on, when you really start working on the pages, okay, here's our plan, boop, 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 boop. You've covered everything, perfect. Don't wing it. Never wing it in your booking. That is a recipe for ouch, headaches, and so on. Don't do that. And once again, if you have a yearbook company representative, hey, include them in the mix. Let them assist you. So let's do an activity right now. Go over your plan. How's it sitting right now? Thanks again for watching.